Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. One of the big questions of this roster period is, where is Scrappy going to go? Are Cloud9 going to get the deal done? And if they don't, will he stay on Toronto? Or will another team be able to pick up the pieces from the situation? Nadeshot revealing in quite some detail actually, a conversation was potentially going to be had between Scrappy and Nadeshot, and Scrappy was seemingly the one trying to initiate this conversation. Does that mean that he's still interested in the Thieves possibility? And if he was to go there alongside Ghosty, how much damage could that team potentially do? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Start bench cut Black Ops edition here from OpTic Gaming. Of course, if Black Ops 3 was on it, you know my answer. As it stands, it's pretty interesting. Black Ops 4 for now is the start. I mean, we don't know enough about Black Ops 6 to say otherwise, to be honest. And if I had to cut one, I mean, look, I'm going to give Black Ops 6 the benefit of the doubt. I guess I have to put that on the bench here, really. Cold War was a good game, probably deserving of being benched on some level, but you know, not as good as Black Ops 4. And I don't think, in the grand scheme of Call of Duty, I think people will, hopefully they'll look back on Black Ops 6 more fondly than they will Cold War, because maybe that was even the reason why they called it Cold War, because that game was rushed, right? They put it out a year earlier than expected because Vanguard wasn't ready from Sledgehammer Games, which was actually another favour that Treyarch did Sledgehammer a couple of years ago, which is maybe why they're now getting some maps in return. We talked about that yesterday, rumours that some of the additional DLC maps that Sledgehammer had made, Treyarch are going to use them instead for their game. Maybe that's part of it, but they called it Cold War. They could have called it Black Ops 5. They didn't. They've skipped Black Ops 5, maybe because they didn't want it to be kind of like in that category with the other Black Ops games, because they knew that it wasn't quite at the same level because it was a very rushed game. Black Ops 6 isn't, and yes, there are concerns, but you know, for me, I think it's going to be start Black Ops 4, bench Black Ops 6, and probably cut Cold War, although I did kind of like that game. But intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. This is an interesting graph, and I'm not sure how much it really says, but I thought I'd mention it anyway if you guys are interested. So this is your sensitivity on the bottom. Most people use somewhere between 4 and 8, I guess. Some people use higher or potentially lower, but this is how it looks. And Impressive Capital went through and analyzed how long it takes you to turn using these different sensitivities. Now this makes a lot of sense that it's a scale both ways, right? So when you start moving, as in let's say you press the left, you know, the right thumbstick, and you're trying to move left or right, you don't immediately move at your full rotational speed, right? So what I mean by that is the difference between the quarter turn and the half turn is not exactly the same as the difference between the quarter turn and no turn at all. You actually speed up throughout the turn, and then once you've got to full speed, you then get to the half turn quicker than you do to the quarter turn relatively. It's kind of what this shows. But also it shows what the actual time is for the different sensitivities. So a sensitivity of 5 will give you a half turn in basically half a second, right? And a sensitivity of 4 will be 6/10, a sensitivity of 8 will be 4/10. So it also scales downwards because, you know, this isn't going to be a straight line, is it, to 0? It's going to be some sort of scale. And the same thing applies for the quarter turn as well, although there's not that much difference here really, right? The difference in the quarter turn between 8 and 4, or certainly 8 and 5, isn't crazy memorable really. So, you know, there's an argument to be made for this. I just thought the numbers were kind of interesting, but I'm not sure in the grand scheme of things they mean all that much. I think really looking at this, it's you know, maybe you'll take a note, but the reality is play with the different sensitivities, see what you like, and then maybe take some information from the data on some level. This was a pretty interesting development last night as well, I gotta say. A couple of days ago we talked about Rambo and, well, Karma's thoughts on Rambo and just the team situation at the time in general, not being massively impressed, it seems, with their decision to drop Dashy as they did. We know that Dashy and Rambo had a big back and forth during 2022 into 2023 as well, and it all kind of culminated in the bowling drama. Now, Rambo is actually a very competent bowler, right, as many of us know, and this is why over the last couple of days I've mentioned Rambowl or Rambowl Ray, and it's just like a play on words really that people have been using for some time on Rambo, and he actually still has one like kind of pin remaining here, so it's not an absolute strike here from Rambo, but it's still a nice shot, and everyone knows that Rambo knows what he's doing when it comes down to bowling, and he's been in his bowling league, and he's, I think, won championships on a regional level, whatever it is, the guy knows his stuff. But the interesting quote was the reply here, where he says, first time bowling in a year, which is, if that's true, it's pretty funny, right? Because the rumor was, according to Dashy, that during their practice in 2022, Dashy or Rambo, one scrim set a week, I think was the eventual rumor, he would like be leaving a bit early to go and play his bowling league in the evening. And of course, that was the story that gave a lot of drama at the time. So he's now off OpTic, he's gone to Surge, and I guess what he's saying here is that he's cut out the bowling, right, entirely from his run. You can actually see the numbers at the top of the screen, can't you, just about from what he's scored so far. But yeah, that's the implication anyway, that after joining Surge, Rambo decided, okay, I need to make sure that I'm not going to this bowling league and skipping scrims for it because I'm going to keep getting roasted. So instead, we're going to just quit for a year and then come back. So, yeah, if that's true, it's kind of interesting, right? Because it kind of implies that Dashy has had a pretty big effect on this situation. This, I just looked up Rambowl and I found a tweet here from the start of 2023 where you guys remember this when the observers would be playing something on one of these monitors. You guys can see that he's watching some bowling action on the right-hand side. So, anyway, that's been the joke over the last couple of years. Just wanted to explain it if you guys aren't aware and add maybe a bit more context to that whole situation. But let's talk about the Black Ops 6 saga and also Nadeshot's perspective on it, right? Because they've played the beta, and I think the general feeling is the game has some optimism around it, but the maps just aren't so good so far, and that's been the question. I'll share Nadeshot's take on that, but also wanted to share his opinion on the Scrappy situation. This is a longer version of the clip we saw the other day. So there was a clip came out where Nadeshot said, you know, Toronto or Scrap played for Toronto, and that's kind of in part of this as well. But also what he said earlier on, that Scrap was apparently hitting Nadeshot up to have a conversation, and then Scrap was like, oh, I've had too much to drink, I've got to call it off. And then he kind of turned down the conversation later on. So maybe that implies that the deal with Cloud9 is further moving on than it initially was a couple of days ago. But nonetheless, it also implies that Scrappy was at least interested in some sort of conversation with Nadeshot to discuss, well, you would well imagine, some sort of roster stuff.
When I first got on Black Ops 6, man, I was a little annoyed. I was a little frustrated. I was like, oh, man, this game might not be that good. You know, it's Treyarch. We love Treyarch games. They've had 4 years to work on it. I'm expecting a lot just knowing that they've had this 4-year window. The first like day or two of the beta, I was like, I don't know, man. The game feels weird. I think it was a combination of I was frustrated that I finally get to Texas and I wasn't on like a single-digit ping server. Like they didn't have the Texas server. But that doesn't have anything to do with the game. Pretty much all the guns kind of felt like shit in comparison to the Jackal. The maps themselves, like Scud TDM and playing this kill order game mode, I'm like, oh my God, bro. I don't care if I got HIV, I'm the HVT, bro. Get this shit out of the mosh pit playlist. But now, after playing for 2 weekends, gentlemen, I'm pretty damn excited. I'm fucking excited. I actually think Black Ops 6 is going to be a great addition to the Call of Duty franchise, bro. Like, I wish that I was getting on right now to play Black Ops 6. I wish I could fast forward to October when it releases to get on this camo grind. I'm really impressed post-beta how much I wish I was playing it. And I think that is like a great indicator of how the game actually feels. I think they sped up the movement a little bit with the second weekend of the beta. They made some changes to the movement. It felt really good. The gunplay feels really good. I will say one of the few things that I could complain about with the game, did you guys feel the same as me thinking that sometimes the time to kill was a little inconsistent? Didn't the TDK feel like sometimes I felt like I was destroying somebody in 3 bullets and another time it just felt like I need to put an entire clip to send this motherfucker to the grave?
Scrappy just said, why is Nade trying to get on a call with me then just not answer in my chat room? What's going on there, Matt?
Wait.
Would you like to talk about this?
First of all, this guy Scrappy, we were supposed to talk just to, you know, he asked me for opinion or how to shrink his neck. I had suggestions. And he said, sorry, I'm a little too drunk right now. Can I call you tomorrow? I said, yeah, that's fine. All good. And then he never called me.
Wait, who was too drunk? Scrappy Doodle?
Yeah, he said he was too drunk. He couldn't call.
Scrappy's getting hammered?
So, I don't know why the fuck I'm under the fucking gun now. How the hell did that happen? I'm not gonna bother the guy if he's sitting there drinking on the off season. The thing is, Scrap played for Toronto Ultra, and it's like, yeah, it'd be nice if, I'm sure for the 20 people that support that team if they won. But over here, there's pressure. There's pressure, you know?
Is that right?
We're expected to win, you know what I mean?
So one of the big questions is, do we expect Los Angeles Thieves next year to be back as a championship contending team? They were in 2 seasons of the CDL. They weren't even in MW19, of course. They came in Cold War, and it was a bit of a shamble. They had their moments in Cold War. I mean, that one team before they signed Hook, when they had TJ on the roster, then Hook became available, they got him. That obviously didn't work out in hindsight at all. So, you know, there were some other possibilities they could have gone for, but of course that season was known for JCap and the boys making all sorts of roster changes throughout the entirety of the regular season. Slasher was in, Slasher was out, and while none of them really worked especially well, it did help them realize that, okay, Drazah is a player for the future, Kenny's a player they're going to keep around, although Kenny was doing all sorts that year. Sometimes he was on the sub, sometimes it was on the main AR, sometimes on the flex. Like, it was a mess of a season. Next year, though, it did set them up on some level to form that famous team with Envoy, Kenny, Drazah, and Octane that went on to dominate the final 2 events of that year. After that, however, the budget of the Thieves, just as an entire organization, was potentially running a little bit slim, and at the end of the MW2 season, when Octane decided that he was going to retire, and they still won an event that year, but they didn't do as well as they did, of course, the year before. And at the end of the year was, what, top 8, wasn't it, at the World Championship? Octane decided to retire, and the entire rest of the team had offers, and they were not offers that Thieves can actually match. This year, it feels like there's going to be a different story there. There's been rumors now for a few months that Nadeshot and Thieves have more money to throw around, and potentially some of the top teams are going to, you know, not spend quite as much as before. We've seen OpTic making budget, well, not budget cuts precisely, but, you know, they've been letting go of some employees over the last couple of months. So, you know, maybe that means something in terms of where the budgets and the salaries still are going to be in the CDL right now. But I think Thieves are certainly wanting to get back into the top 4. And at the end of the most recent season, they were probably there anyway, weren't they, right? Top 4 at Champs, 2nd place at the Esports World Cup regardless, even though they weren't paying their boys a crazy amount of money, I'd imagine. And they'd obviously had a lot of reason for optimism for the new year. But the latest rumour is Nastie's probably going to be gone. And, of course, well, Kremp seems to be gone as well. They've both removed it from their bio. So they are going to make some changes, and that probably means they're going to spend some money to try and make some moves. If you're Scrappy, how, well, much of an option is this actually to go and join? Because if you're Scrap and you get the option, stay on Toronto or go over there to Thieves. Now, you might not get the option because the organization is going to do what they want. If they're going to sell you, if they're going to have that buyout from your contract, that's how they're going to do it. And if Thieves pay enough money, if Cloud9 pay enough money, probably Scrappy has no choice. He said on stream not long ago now that effectively it doesn't look like he's going to be staying on that team, because just highly unlikely as it currently stands, with Toronto looking for a buyout and some organizations willing to put up some money. But if you are Scrap and, you know, let's say Envoy goes. I think Envoy will go. I think Envoy either goes to Thieves or Cloud9, to be honest. But if you're Scrap and it's like, look, we're going to keep CleanX and Insight, Scrappy either stay and we'll get another SMG, or go and join this team with Ghosty and JoeDeceives +1, what do you do? Is that a good or a bad trade? I think it's probably pretty 50-50 either way. But and I would say that Thieves is the backup option compared to Cloud9, because if you get the chance to play with HyDra, you know, arguably the best player in COD over the last 24 months, you probably are going to do exactly that. So I think Scrappy's decision might not even be his decision, but even if it is, it's quite interesting either way. Of course, we know that he's, you know, good boys with TJ on some level, and they've had lots of back and forth over the last several years. But also I do wonder, like, let's say that was the case and he joins a team that needs an SMG. TJ's a complete unrestricted free agent, by the way, from obviously the Ravens, which surprised me to some degree, because Fellow is a restricted free agent from Ravens. They're trying to sell him, but TJ isn't, although I think it's more likely you get a buyout for TJ than you do for Fellow, in my opinion. And obviously it also depends, this whole Thieves situation, on whether this is true, because, you know, if this is true that Nadeshot and Scrappy have had some conversations, or at least there's been talks about them having conversations, there were rumours the other day that Cloud9 Scrappy is closer to its conclusion now than it's been before, even though Toronto say that's not true according to Adam Adamu. So, and if that's true, then maybe it makes it more likely that Thieves are the ones getting the deal done, or he's not going anywhere. So how do we read into this? It's very difficult. Intro to your thoughts, as always, in the comments section below. Just one final thing, Octane's final season, some stats from that, and and we'd mentioned Octane's retirement earlier today. It did come as a surprise to the community when it happened. It came as a surprise to his team, of course, when it happened, and it was known behind the scenes that Octane was going to retire, and it was cool to see because lots of people knew about this before it was announced, and nobody leaked it, and it still came as like a shock to the community and a good moment for Octane to be able to get the send-off that he deserved. But look, he had a phenomenal final season, arguably his best ever season, to be honest. Unfortunately, I guess he didn't, bow out of the World Championship early because, as Slothay says, retired on top got a tippet, which is true on some level, but also Carl goes, he placed last and then retired. Octane's like, hey Carl, thanks for the positive words. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.